This video is sponsored by Aura. If you've ever experienced identity theft, think about what happened and how it impacted you. What did you learn from the experience, and what steps did you take to recover? Sharing your story can help others understand the importance of protecting their identity and inspire them to take action with Aura and their different features to avoid a similar situation. Data broker opt-out, identity theft protection, financial fraud protection, certified data security and privacy, VPN, antivirus, password manager, and 24/7 US-based support. Don't leave yourself open to hackers and scammers. Go to aura.com/KrystlynCrime to get your 14-day free trial. Thanks again to Aura for sponsoring this video. Giosuè Gallucci was born on December 10, 1864, in Naples, Italy, to Luca Gallucci and Antonia Calvello. In 1883, a Naples court sentenced him for breaking parole, resisting arrest, and perjury, followed by another conviction in 1885 for assault and attempted extortion. On March 11, 1892, Gallucci arrived in New York City, violating Italian immigration laws in the process. As a result, he was convicted in absentia for fraud. An Italian police report also noted that he departed Italy again on July 24, 1896. Rumors circulated that Gallucci had killed a man before leaving for New York, though he denied the allegation. In April of 1898, New York authorities arrested Gallucci in connection to the murder of Josephine Anselmo, whom police described as his companion. Anselmo was found in her apartment at 108 Mulberry Street, with her throat cut from ear to ear, just blocks from the notorious Mulberry Bend. At the time of his arrest, Gallucci was running a fruit wagon in the neighborhood and was described as a young grocer and expressman with a store at 172 Mott Street. He denied involvement in the crime and provided an alibi. A grand jury ultimately dismissed the charges. However, NYPD Detective Joe Petrosino, who led the investigation, requested additional information from Italian authorities. The police prefect of Naples responded, describing Gallucci as a dangerous criminal and a blackmailer who had been under surveillance and previously charged with theft, extortion, and other crimes. The report also alleged that Gallucci's wife was of bad character. His brothers in Italy had even more extensive criminal records. Vincenzo Gallucci had served 2 prison terms and been convicted 16 times for assault, attempted murder, and other offenses. Francesco Gallucci had 6 convictions, including attempted murder, theft, and assaulting the police. On November 20th, 1898, Vincenzo was shot in New York City, allegedly on orders from an Italian secret society resembling the Mafia. He succumbed to his injuries the following day. Francesco D'Angelo and Luigi La Rosa were charged with his murder. Both pleaded guilty to manslaughter and received sentences of 20 and 15 years in prison. Petrosino claimed that the Galluccis were just 3 of over 1,000 Italian criminals from Naples and Sicily who had settled in New York City. These individuals largely evaded police scrutiny because they primarily targeted fellow Italians, and the community's tendency to handle matters privately kept law enforcement at bay. By the time authorities took notice, the Galluccis had already been in the country for more than a year, making them ineligible for deportation. Gallucci established multiple businesses in Little Italy and East Harlem, starting on Mulberry Street before moving to a 3-story brick building at 318 East 109th Street, which housed a bakery and an attached stable. He also operated a cigar store at 329 East 109th Street. Rumors suggested that he ran a brothel at the intersection of East 109th Street and 2nd Avenue. Following the 1910 imprisonment of Sicilian-American mafia leaders Giuseppe Morello and Ignazio Lupo on counterfeiting charges, Gallucci emerged as the undisputed boss of Little Italy. He controlled numerous tenements in the neighborhood and dominated key industries, including coal and ice distribution, cobbler shops, the olive oil trade, and the Italian lottery. As one of the area's most powerful moneylenders, he maintained strict control over the policy game, employing Neapolitan and Sicilian street gangs as enforcers. Gallucci operated what was purportedly the New York office of the Royal Italian Lottery, which was in reality a front for his own policy racket.
Selling thousands of tickets each month across Harlem, he ran the operation from his basement, with agents in multiple cities with Italian communities. Each month, a grand drawing was held, offering a single $1,000 prize, though winners were often robbed of their earnings upon payout. According to the NYPD, the bulk of Gallucci's wealth came from his grip on Harlem's policy racket, gambling houses, and brothels, all concentrated in the Little Italy section of Harlem. A commanding figure, Gallucci was described as a big fellow with a pleasant face and a hearty laugh. He was often seen in Harlem, swinging a loaded cane and dressed in impeccably tailored suits, sporting a perfectly waxed mustache, a $2,000 diamond ring, and $3,000 diamond shirt studs. Despite persistent allegations of criminal activity, he adamantly denied any wrongdoing. "My enemies say that I am the head of the Black Hand business, that I run the blackmail bomb business, and that I own all the lotteries," he complained just a week before his death. "They are wrong. I own bakeries, ice and wood shops, shoe shining and repair shops, and similar places, but I am not king of the Black Hand." Due to his vast influence, both politically and within the criminal underworld, he was often referred to as the King of Little Italy or simply the Boss. Gallucci secured near total immunity from law enforcement by aligning himself with Tammany Hall, the powerful Democratic political machine that dominated Manhattan and New York City politics. Tammany's political influence controlled the city's police force and bureaucracy, which issued construction contracts and business licenses. With his ability to mobilize Harlem's immigrant vote and register new arrivals, Gallucci delivered a crucial block of ballots. His deep political connections provided him with a certain measure of immunity from police interference. Salvatore Catillo, who later became the first Italian-born justice of the New York Supreme Court and had grown up in Italian Harlem, described Gallucci as a man who saw everyone as either an underling or a source of tribute. "It was a matter of concern in the neighborhood if you were looked down upon by Gallucci," Catillo recalled. According to his biographer, Gallucci openly boasted about his influence over the police and the ability to arrange convenient outcomes and the means to make witnesses disappear. When Gallucci was arrested for carrying a concealed weapon, Catillo was asked to testify as a character witness, but refused, distancing himself from the local underworld that sought to recruit him. Gallucci's older brother, Gennaro Gallucci, was shot and killed on November 14, 1909, in the back room of a family bakery. The assassin entered the bakery, called out for Gennaro, and shot him as soon as he appeared. Gennaro had drawn the attention of authorities due to his role as a collector of protection payments, forcing him to leave New York City for a time. He had arrived in the city from Italy in December of 1908 after escaping prison, where he had served 23 years of a life sentence for murdering 2 men. Upon his return, he lived with his brother Giosuè and sister-in-law Assunta on East 109th Street. Soon after his arrival, the police began receiving complaints about his extortion activities. However, when the victims were informed they would need to testify in court, they withdrew their accusations. On September 20th, 1909, police arrested Gennaro for carrying concealed weapons. Immigration authorities attempted to deport him to Italy, but the courts, unaware of his criminal past, released him with a suspended sentence. 2 months later, he was dead, his murder potentially linked to his extortion operations, according to police. Just months before, bullets had been fired through the bakery's window in a prior attack. Later, letters sent to the police suggested that Gallucci himself had orchestrated his brother's killing. Gallucci, however, placed the blame on Aniello Prisco, a Harlem gangster known as Zoppo the Gimp. This accusation ignited a violent feud that lasted for 2 years, marked by frequent clashes and occasional killings. Prisco, the leader of the Black Hand gang, accused Gallucci of encroaching on his territory, escalating tensions between the two factions. At the time, Gallucci controlled various gambling games and took a percentage from each sale of stolen horses and peddled artichokes. If anyone refused to pay, they would be assaulted, receive blackmail letters, or be killed. Despite his influence and political connections, Gallucci himself was not immune to Black Hand extortion. He frequently received threats, was targeted in assassination attempts, and survived multiple gunshot wounds. In 1911, a Neapolitan Black Hand gang led by Aniello Prisco launched a violent campaign against Gallucci, killing several of his associates after he refused to pay for protection. The feud came to a head on December 15, 1912, when Prisco was shot and killed by Gallucci's nephew and bodyguard, John Russomano, during a meeting at Gallucci's bakery. Russomano later claimed he acted in self-defense and was not charged with murder. Gallucci not only faced threats from rival gangsters, but also increasing pressure from law enforcement, as authorities responded to the wave of murders, bombings, and extortion attempts. Gallucci's grip on legal rackets also led to violent disputes with other gangs. The Neapolitan Del Guardio brothers, linked to the Brooklyn-based Navy Street Gang, were active in illegal gambling in East Harlem. However, Gallucci allegedly denied them permission to operate a lottery. Niccolo Del Guardio, brother of Gaetano, owned a barber shop on East 104th Street, which had been suggested as a meeting place between Prisco and Gallucci. After an unsuccessful attempt on Gallucci's life, Niccolo fled Harlem, only to return in October of 1914, where he was subsequently murdered. While Gallucci was suspected of orchestrating the killing, no charges were ever filed. As Gallucci's influence waned, he struggled to maintain control amid ongoing conflicts with the remnants of Prisco's gang. Rival lotteries began emerging, challenging his once unquestioned dominance. Just a week before his assassination, he made the fatal decision to dismiss his bodyguards, after the latest in a long line had been shot and killed. Serving as Gallucci's bodyguard was a perilous occupation. 10 had already been slain. The year prior, Gallucci himself was wounded, and 2 of his guards were killed when an attempted collection on First Avenue turned violent. Sensing his impending demise, Gallucci confided to a friend, "I know they will get me." On May 17, 1915, he and his 18-year-old son, Luca, were ambushed in a coffee shop on East 109th Street, an establishment Gallucci had recently purchased for his son. Gallucci was shot in the stomach and neck, while Luca, trying to defend his father, suffered a gunshot wound to the stomach. Inside the shop, 15 men, mostly Gallucci's associates, returned fire, but the assailant escaped, jumping into a waiting car around the corner on First Avenue. Luca succumbed to his injuries the next day at Bellevue Hospital. His funeral drew an estimated 5,000 mourners and a procession of 800 carriages, 22 of them carrying flowers alone. It was the largest funeral Harlem had seen at the time, with reports claiming the final carriages were still leaving the church in Harlem as the hearse arrived at the cemetery in Queens. Despite his wounds, Gallucci refused to cooperate with the police, insisting he would handle matters himself. However, he died 3 days later on May 21st from a gunshot wound to the abdomen. His murder was never officially solved.